Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Carey, and welcome to the Deadline virtual Sundance studio for our discussion of Street Gang, How We Got to Sesame Street, a documentary that is making its debut in the premiere section at Sundance. Joining us are director Marilyn Agrelo and producers Ellen Scherer Crafts and Trevor Crafts. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're excited.
So Street Gang tells the origins of what has become an institution for over 50 years now, Sesame Street, really dialing back to the 1960s and its origins. And it's really a very complex story in many respects. So I want to get into how you brought it all together. But first, maybe for Ellen and Trevor, you could talk about how the project came together. It's obviously 50 years in the making.
Yeah, I was a Sesame Street kid growing up. I had really good memories watching the show with my mom and my dad in our basement in Long Island, and I think I was really captured by the amazing world that was built. And as Ellen and I were growing our company, Macrocosm, which is really all about building new worlds or showcasing amazing worlds that were built, I had read Michael Davis's book, Street Gang, and things that inspired us as kids. And I was really struck by the incredible stories that I didn't know. You know, Sesame Street is an institution now, but it didn't start that way. It was this ragtag group of people that had this idea to do something really unique and really different. And so I said to Ellen, I read this book. I think this might be a really cool documentary.
And then I read the book and I agreed. What I liked about it was there was so much in there that I didn't know. And what I particularly thought would be so interesting was to bring this film out as the origin story, really how this group of creatives, educators, put together something that was a response to the civil rights movement and aimed to help children, preschool children, with education, and particularly those that are children of color that lived in our cities that didn't have the same access. And I thought this could be really great.
And then the next step was finding a director that could help, bring our vision for this film and this project to the world. And that's when Marilyn came in.
And Marilyn, you were really a perfect person to do this because you've actually directed episodes of Sesame Street.
Yes.
So you know how it's made from a perspective that most people don't see. And then in this film, you really get to share it with people. Because I think for the most part, no one's really been behind the scenes in the way that this film presents it. Were you also a Sesame Street kid growing up?
Not so much, but I have to say that once I started to delve into the story and find out how it came together, and particularly the people that put it together, I became really, really interested and really, really intrigued, and it was kind of irresistible to me. And actually, Matthew, it was music to my ears to hear you describe it as a complex story, because the goal of this film was not to tell the Sesame Street story that everyone knows and to show clips from all the shows, but rather to get really deep underneath into the characters and to what motivated them and why they did what they did, which was so bold and so experimental in those early days. And so it was more about how it felt, how the world felt to them, and why they needed to address how the world felt to them. And the fact that they did it through a show for preschoolers is just amazing.
Yeah, and I think one thing that fascinated me was the intentionality behind the series. I mean, this was years, at least 2 years in the making, a very unique project, and you really share with viewers the origins of it, where before Sesame Street, kids had commercial television to watch, and you have this wonderful, vintage commercial of the Budweiser song. And I remember that Budweiser song, and here kids could sing the Budweiser song, but what were they learning from commercial television? So maybe Ellen and Trevor, you could talk about the origins of this in terms of it being a unique collaboration between TV professionals and educators.
Well, you said it perfectly, Matthew. Yes, this was a collaboration. It was an experiment. It was, Lloyd Morissette, who was a psychologist, excuse me, and he posed to his friend Joan Gans Cooney, who was a female executive working in television. Could we use this medium of television to educate children? And she said, I don't know, but let's try it, and what Joan was fascinated with was exactly that. The fact that children were responding to commercials and were able to remember the songs. They could sing along. And Lloyd said, my daughter is fascinated by a test pattern. So between these two compelling forces, what could we put together using education, to get the show to children? And they did. And they brought together an amazing crew. It was the right place at the right time, to bring Jim Henson, Joe Raposo, John Stone, the original director, and they made it happen. And they worked incredible hours and time to do it, but it was really a gang. And we want to show that in the film, that these adults came together with a higher purpose to help children, and that it was a crazy, wild, and amazing time.
And I think one of the things that they did that was so unique was that they showed the world the way they wanted it to be. And, I think one of the things that is so amazing is to bring people together of different races onto television. It was the first time that had ever happened. And it was a very intentional design. And I think that's part of the thing that is so important, is that we recognize that at that point in time, it was truly groundbreaking, and we see it now. But, then it was something that had never been done before.
Yeah, we call it representation now, but there's this amazing archival interview that we have with Sonia Manzano from the early 70s, the beloved Maria. And she said, when you grow up not seeing yourself represented in the media, you start to feel that you don't exist in our society. And that's something that Sesame Street started from the very beginning to address, using community organizers like Evelyn Davis to reach the communities that they so desperately wanted to reach with the show, and was so critically important.
Right, and you mentioned Joe Raposo, who was the composer. He did the theme song. He did Lord knows how many songs. I mean, certainly one of the wonderful, iconic ones is "It's Not Easy Being Green." And we're also introduced to, you mentioned John Stone, a really critically important figure, but somebody who I think probably didn't get his due exactly. And Marilyn, maybe you could speak to the really central role he had in organizing this massive team, bringing humor to it, developing characters. I mean, he played such an important role.
Such an important role. I mean, one of the most amazing things about this film for me is the opportunity to introduce John Stone to the world. Every time I've ever spoken to anyone about, I'm working on a documentary about the origins of Sesame Street, 90% of the people assume that Jim Henson started Sesame Street. This is what people think. And John Stone conceived of everything, the look of the street. When he made this decision to put it on a Harlem street, that he saw a PSA on television, we were determined to track down this "Take Your Kids to the Ghetto" commercial that he saw, that inspired the whole street stoop of a brownstone. And it took us, I think, 8 or 9 months to track it down with our magnificent archival producer. But it was this type of detail and this type of attention and dedication that John Stone had. And all of it was in the service of making something that was going to be really well written, really sophisticated humor. The humor was aimed at adults, really, because they knew that if adults and kids watched it together, the kids would get so much more out of it. And so Joe Raposo's music, the writing, the Muppet skits, all of it was on such an amazingly sophisticated level. And John was responsible for all of that and really stuck with it for years and years. So we are so thrilled to tell his story.
Yes, and we hear from his daughters, one of whom, anyway, was on the show. Yes. A cute little muffin,
little Polly.
Yeah, Polly of maybe 4 or so. Well, and this film will be shown on HBO, which is appropriate because HBO airs Sesame Street now in a deal I think that started back in 2015. But maybe lastly, you could tell me for the producers, for Trevor and Ellen, about premiering at Sundance and what that means to you.
You know, we are so excited for this premiere today. This has really been a labor of love to put this film together. You know, documentary filmmaking is independent documentary filmmaking is a feat, and add COVID to the mix. You know, in finishing, it's been incredible. But the fact that Sundance, reached. We can't even say how incredibly important it is to us, and we're so excited to be partnering with them and being premiering today. It's a dream come true.
Yeah, and I think what's so great is that Sundance really gives filmmakers of all kinds a platform to be able to tell very unique and very important stories. And I think the thing that is so interesting, as Marilyn said earlier, that Street Gang is a story about 1969 and the creation of something that was very revolutionary. But all of the themes that are in the film are as equally relevant today as they were. And we have such amazing partners and amazing in HBO, in Screen Media, who will premiere the film theatrically, in Sesame Workshop, in the Jim Henson Company. I mean, the riches continue on and on. But to have it premiere here at Sundance, that's really the best gift of all.
And we want to thank Sundance for their commitment to female filmmakers.
Absolutely.
And to filmmakers of color. I think this year's festival is an extremely lovely bouquet of creatives that have put together some work that's really important for everyone to see. And we want to thank Sundance for having us be a part of it.
And finally, Marilyn, your thoughts on making your premiere at Sundance, which is the best place in the world to unveil a documentary.
It really is. It means everything because, you get so wrapped up in a film like this. We've all been in the world of Street Gang and in the world of Sesame for years, and we love this story so much. And it's so gratifying that it was recognized in such a way and recognized by Sundance. And as Ellen said, we are so proud to be at Sundance during a year when the diversity of the directors and the filmmakers and everyone and the subject matter of the films is so diverse and so fantastic. We're thrilled. We're absolutely thrilled.
Well, it's really a fascinating trip to Sesame Street, and congratulations to all of you on your Sundance debut, to director Marilyn Agrello and to producers Ellen Shearer Crafts and Trevor Crafts. Thank you so much for joining us.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.